I'm your cult boyfriend talking about Skins Season 3. Effie takes control. In the very first episode of the third season, Effie kind of sizes all of the different cast members up. Of course, Season 3, outside of Effie, features an entirely new cast of characters. Season 3 introduces us to Skins Gen 2, and when we are first introduced to these characters, Effie is sizing them up with us. Right? Just like how the audience is watching them going, oh, they're going to be interesting. Oh, no, they're going to be trouble. That sort of thing. Effie is doing the same exact sort of processes, not as a viewer, but as a narrative maker, but as a contributor to the drama. So when she first sees the twins, I think right away she's impressed by the energy of the two of them, and then she immediately is able to clock the dynamic where Emily secretly hates Katie, and she goes, she hates her. Interesting. Like, oh, I can use this. This will be good for my fucking soap opera. She's instantly able to figure out the three boys immediately. The three bonehead boys, Cook, Freddie, and JJ. She even supplies them with a list of depraved hedonistic activities for them to complete in one day. And she said, whoever wins will get to know me. And she basically supplies them with an arc spreadsheet, with a ready-made arc. And whoever completes it gets to fuck her. Everything from arson to doing drugs to being naked, like all of it. And the checklist is also useful to Effie because it will let her know who is on her hedonistic, nihilistic level. And of course, it's Cook who completes that list. And the first episode ends in a great way, like a pretty disagreeable way, because the writing, the narrative system, the acting, the way the entire show's framed is that you believe that Freddy, for some reason, call it an innocent reason, is interested in Effie for more genuine reasons, whereas Cook is absolutely wild, and you don't want to see Effie fuck Cook. Like, that's something you don't want to see, and that's what happens at the very end of the episode. And I just loved it. I was like, okay, hell yeah, Effie. Because Effie also knows what fucking one of them will do to the trio, to that friend group. It will eventually, ultimately tear them apart, which is great if you're making a fucking soap opera. And I'm under the belief that Effie knows that she's in a fucking soap opera. She knows she's in a teen television show. That's kind of why she's sizing up all of the new characters. That's kind of why she's already psychoanalyzing them and sorting out ways to make them more interesting within the narrative that she is creating. Like, I think she knows she's the new Tony. I think she knows she's the new lead. And I think that she's learned from her brother that if you want to make a good fucking soap opera, you have to be pretty fucking inventive. And if we follow Effie, it's a beautiful story. A beautiful arc through Effie. Effie is still my favorite character on the whole show. She became my favorite character in the second season because I finally started to understand her. She's the postmodern brat to end them all. I adore her. I think she's such a good character. You could write a philosophy book about her. Screw the myth of Sisyphus. I could write the myth of Stoneham, you know? And if we follow Effie's arc, she takes us through all of these wildly kind of tender, sensitive, sweet, and depressing and also depraved investigations of hedonism, of nihilism, and ultimately of love and of surrender. A surrender to meaning. A triangle inevitably is cultivated between Effie, Cook, and Freddie. And this is a triangle with teeth, with bite. A triangle that has a lot of bad feelings attached to it, and I was so here for it. I think that Effie Stoneham may have invented the perfect triangle because it is so harsh and it's so dramatic. It's so I mean, confrontational, right? It's really rough, especially if you're watching it from any point of view. Honestly, it's just a devastating triangle because Freddy is tortured by how much he loves her, and the sense of betrayal from Cook is just so palpable. And the moment where he goes to her window and Cook appears and starts like kissing her in front of him, and they're both looking at him, that's wild. That's wild. But I think that that's symbolic too, because I'm going to get into Cook in a minute. But Effie and Cook are operating on a level of skill that vastly overshadows everybody else, right? Those are the two absolute nihilists of the show. And if Skins is a show that at least previously rewarded hedonistic and narcissistic behavior, Effie and Cook are teen drama royalty because that's all they project. That's all that they do. So they're up there looking down at the kind of more basic archetype, the more innocent teen character, and it's a wild thing to see. It's a wild thing to see the king and queen of nihilism just lording their sex over Freddy. Oh man, you'd hate to be Freddy. You'd also hate to be Effie, right? I think that the more Effie dives headfirst into the abyss of nihilism, the more dignity that she loses, the more impossible she becomes to save. But I think that Effie is a complicated enough character to not believe in kind of silly ideas like dignity, or I don't even think she believes that she could truly be saved. But that's part of the arc here, right? Because she ultimately eventually does. And Cook, let's talk about Cook for a second. It's terrible to also view the triangle from Cook's perspective, even though he seems to get every girl that he possibly wants. Ultimately, none of the girls want him, and I loved Cook, and that thing that I just said kind of reminds me of kids I went to high school with. I think season 3 is not as great as seasons 1 or 2, but it's still very, very good, and I think that maybe season 3 is, at least when it comes to its depiction of like male friendships, might be a little bit more accurate, at least for my own life experiences. You think you have such a tight bond, but like one girl with pretty eyes could just run through your friend group and you're never the same after that. Betrayal becomes a huge thing. When boys come of age, they kind of have to learn how to demonstrate masculinity in ways that aren't outwardly hurtful, and they also have to learn that, like, it's the first time they're feeling strong emotions like love. So whereas Cook is just like extremely hedonistic and wants to fuck everything in sight, Freddy is feeling love for a girl for the first time ever, and that emotion is so powerful that he kind of, I think, claims Effie emotionally, which is, I think, almost equally as wrong and immature and weird. But yes, my high school friend group was definitely devastated by pretty scene girls, pretty scene emo girls, completely ruined by them. Which, and you had that one friend like Cook who seemed to just be able to fuck everything in sight. It was crazy, dude. It was wild, man. That said, Cook is, apart from Effie, the best character this season. Effie will always be the number one, the patron saint of postmodern teen drama is Effie Stoneham. But Cook was awesome. I think the best episode is Cook's central episode, episode 2. I love the way that it starts and the way that it ends, because I think Cook represents kind of anarchism. I would say just pure hedonism, but I'd give more of a political charge to it because he seems to be coded in the stylings of oh, working class untouchables. Like working class punk songs seem to be the amplification of his ethos, right? Walking down the street going like, I was born into a country baptized in religion at the beginning and at the end. Like at the beginning, so like we get this crazy introduction to him, and then we see him go through some of the most depraved and intense things ever. Then at the very end, he thinks that someone is trying to kill him, and then when he realizes he's okay, he's safe to walk down the street. Boom, that crazy smile comes back, and he starts marching and singing that song. Oh my God, he's intense. He's outrageous. And that smile, that laugh, the Cook laugh, it doesn't matter what depraved thing Cook had just done. When he laughs, he wins me over again. I am on his side. He is pure chaos. He is anarchism incarnate. He's not like an intellectual or anything. He's the raw essence of the most problematic and confrontational ideologies ever. Like my heart goes out to this kid so much, and he feels so unloved because he is so unloved. At least in the ways he'd like to be loved. He just fucking wants to be loved, man. Like that's all. I know he's a disagreeable character, does disagreeable things, who never stops being wild and crazy, but if he did stop, he would cease to exist. JJ even asks him, what if you just stopped? What if you just stopped for a minute? And Cook basically says, this is all I have. All I have is momentum. All I have is movement. He is nihilistic momentum and postmodern movement. He can't stop. If he stops, he ceases to exist. He ceases to be the one who is dominating the narrative. He ceases to be all of those things. Speaking of dominating the narrative, let's go back to Effie. Effie and Cook are the most interesting characters this season, so I might spend a little bit extra time on those two. Effie was dominating narratives in season 2, and she dominates the narrative throughout most of season 3 with these new kids. And she introduced a love triangle, and love triangles are integral to a great season of teen drama, especially a great season 3. Look it up. You'll be surprised. Season 3 features typically a love triangle in a lot of different seasons, not just Dawson's Creek, but Beverly Hills 90210. So many. Like season 3, 3 sides to a triangle. In the third season, you normally get that within a great teen drama, and Effie supplied us with one. Like, she knew how to make a great fucking soap opera because she sorted out her brothers in the previous season. But as the season progresses, she finds herself being overwhelmed by her own narrative systems, by the narratives that she created, finds herself being overwhelmed by them. And what she hates the most is that she made this beautiful, dramatic play about nihilism itself, about postmodernism, about meaninglessness, about nothing and nothingness and depravity. And she ends up falling in love. She catches feelings. She falls in love with Freddie. And possibly the best scene of season 3. She has a kiss with Freddie that is actually a remarkable kiss. It is really good. He goes to see her, and she's out in the middle of this lake, far from him. And they see each other, and immediately they start running towards each other. And I think that what makes the kiss so great, and what makes that kiss also so symbolic, is kind of reminiscent of Effie from the first season. It reminds me of Effie from the first season, at least. Like when she started to really come around as a character was when her brother saved her from the underworld, essentially. When her brother saved her from that haunted house, fucking nightmarish house party that she overdosed at. Her brother was willing to go into the abyss of nihilism itself to save her. And that's kind of what Freddie is demonstrating he'd do for her. She's out there by herself in the middle of depression, in the middle of nihilism, but Freddie is willing to go out to her. And when he gets her, he kisses her, and the expressions are so, I think, spot on, so romantic, tender, and passionate, and vulnerable, especially from Effie. We don't normally see a truly vulnerable expression from Effie, but we do within that kiss. And also, possibly Effie didn't expect Freddie to do that, Freddie to even be there to kiss her, because I think she designed these narratives so well that she didn't expect for some of the characters to start rejecting the narrative that she invented and go for it anyway. And that's kind of why she had to make that triangle more intense at the end of that episode. She fell in love with Freddie, and she hated that she was in love with Freddie so much that she would do anything to try to get rid of that feeling. She would try to fuck the love away. She would do as many drugs in the world if it meant that she didn't feel love for a second. She tried to run away from love itself. She did everything she could to refuse love, to pretend that she wasn't in love, to feel free like she used to in a very depressing and manic sort of way. But it didn't work. Ultimately, they do end up together. Ultimately, Freddie does go back out into that water, right? Does go back out there. Freddie goes out there and saves not only Effie, but Cook and JJ. And then they leave in a boat, right? So like we are actually hyper literally back to the water metaphor, but this time they're all together. They just don't know what they're gonna do or where they're gonna go. But each one does feel a little bit more safe and a little bit more satisfied. And I think all of them understand concepts like love a little bit better at the end of this season. JJ included. It's JJ, Cook, Effie, and Freddie on that boat at the very end of the season. And Effie has just been overwhelmed by the narrative that she invented. And the fact that she fell in love was not planned. Like that wasn't supposed to happen. And it caused a lot of problems with the careful little soap opera that she made. She was attacked by Katie, one of the twins, because Katie was in love with Freddie, and Effie ends up smashing her face in with a fucking rock. Like that stuff that Effie didn't want to happen. And that actually made Effie feel very bad about how about how she almost killed Katie. Effie is incredible. Cook is incredible. Hopeless kids with hopeful faces. Hopeless kids with hopeful faces. That's kind of how I view Skin Season 3 in a pretty big way. And I like that there are traces, remnants, fingerprints from the previous cast of kids, and they're kind of giving us clues as to how to read certain situations, right? Like Freddy's looking through a locker that says Sid on it, and we're like, okay, and it's a cute Easter egg. It's a cute little idea of having traces of the previous cast there, but it's also informing us to who Freddy is as a person. Just like when Cook and JJ are ready to go out and get completely fucking totaled, and you see a some graffiti that Chris had left because Cook must be staying in the same room that Chris was in, and Chris's wildly impulsive behavior. You can see a lot of that within Cook, of course, to a much larger and more selfish degree in Cook, but you see that kind of relentless, chaotic freedom that was in Chris. But it's kind of darker with Cook because it's not really a freedom. He is ruled by his dick. He is ruled by his impulses. He is ruled by self-destruction. And I there's something just so manic about the way Cook acts. Like he's completely fucking insane. And I loved the actor who played Cook was mesmerizing. He was so fucking good. Like I'm so impressed by the character Cook. But I like these little remnants and like fingerprints. Seeing Sid's name on a locker with Freddy standing next to it, you're like, okay, I'm associating those two with each other. I like that. But I like the idea that the previous cast are still there, but in kind of teenage hieroglyphics, which in a teen drama is just like writing on a bathroom wall, writing on a locker, writing on a door, kind of vulgar things, artifacts, because they find like Sid's porno mag in the locker. Artifacts, hieroglyphics, at that point, ancient hieroglyphics, right? That's really cool. That's really interesting. The new characters aren't nearly as good as the first, but I had a feeling they wouldn't be already, so I'm not going to be too harsh about that. The first season of Skins, along with Gossip Girl, like those are probably the two best casts ever, like main casts. That's that was incredible. The first generation of Skins is one of the greatest ensembles I've ever seen in a teen show. It would be unreasonable of me to think that would be the same in the second generation of kids. But I do like them. I do think that they're all okay in their own way. Katie and Emily, JJ, Thomas, they're good. They're all right. Naomi, they're okay. The one that really stands out so far as the brand new addition is Cook. I was thrilled every time he was on screen. It was dangerous. I completely saw what Effie saw within Cook. She saw someone who was just as self destructive and chaotic and nihilistic and hedonistic as she was. I think a really cool moment is when they're kind of beaten and kicked out of that club and thrown into a heap of garbage, and they start laughing and they start fucking each other's brains out. It's all about mindless shit when it's the two of them. And it's really ironic just how meaningful grotesque acts of meaninglessness can be. Like that's so cool to me. um but those two are scaling the Everest peaks of philosophy, and I'm here for it. Those two are very interesting. But Effie is one of the most fascinating characters I've ever engaged with. I love this concept that she invented this soap opera narrative, and then she became overwhelmed by it and consumed into it. And it's because of love, it's because of a tenderness, because of a good, and it's because of a sweetness. And yet I still feel there's this very mysterious quality about her where I don't know her as well yet. Like this could all have been you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know her yet. Even her mother says the Effie smile is so interesting because like even when she was a kid, the Effie smile was mysterious, saying you don't know me at all. I'm not convinced that I know her at all either yet, and I've spent a lot of time with her, especially analyzing her. There's still a great deal of mystery to Effie, and I hope that there always is. She's guarded from the audience. She's guarded from the other characters, I think primarily because in a postmodern way, she knows she's a character and she knows she's being watched by us. So she's guarded until she's ready to put on a show, and then she's completely just theatrical and gives us everything we want to see. But otherwise, she's guarded because she knows how kind of vicious the narrative can be. The narrative of teen drama, the narrative of soap operas. She's a character who knows just how vicious they can be because she has dominated them for seasons at this point. And I think that the narrative finally overcame Effie Stoneham at the end of season 3, where even though she didn't want to, she couldn't help but love Freddie. She didn't want to admit it. She's a lot like Tony in this regard, where Tony refused to acknowledge his love for Michelle for as long as possible. He refused to admit it for an extremely long time because it was really hard for him to not only admit, but to firstly accept. Effie refused to believe she loved Freddie for as long as possible until it almost killed her. The refusal almost killed her. So she had to admit it, or else she'd die. The first 2 seasons of Skins were something really, really special. And season 3 is not on the same level as the first 2 seasons of Skins, but I still thought it was very, very, very good. It's just a bit more. It's more postmodern, honestly, which is good for me because that's what I love most in the world. But I can see someone who really liked the first generation of Skins characters not really liking this new generation because of maybe the harshness, the severe unlikability of some of the characters and their actions, the selfishness involved. But come on, man, it's a narrative and Effie's inventing it, and she knows that betrayal and selfishness, that's how you explore nihilism, and Cook understands it too. Cook doesn't understand that he's in a narrative, but he's being used by Effie. He's this relentless, this ball of energy, ball of mania, and she's controlling him. He's very helpful to her in constructing her soap opera, which was season 3 of Skins. And I'm sure a lot of people hate Cook. I love Cook. Cook is my favorite of the brand new kids. Like I do love Cook. He's awesome. He's great. Kind of like the more unlikable people on teen dramas, though, because I feel that they provide the show with the most drama. Like, I'm such a postmodernist, especially when it comes to art. In a teen drama, the character who provides the show with the most drama tends to be the one that I admire most because they're doing the most for the show. And Effie and Cook, hands down, have done the most for the third season of Skins. They're not only postmodern brats, but they're postmodern heroes so far as I'm concerned. Skin season 3 was very, very good. I did enjoy it, and I'm excited for season 4. I want to see I want to see where we're going because a part of me thinks that the writers didn't even know at the end of season 3 because the last words of this season are are the kids on that boat, like they escaped. They escaped certain doom. They escaped nihilism itself. But then they're like, so where are we going now? Where do we go? I think that's partly the writers saying that. I don't think the writers knew exactly where they were going to go from there. So I think season 4 will be interesting, and there might be a little bit more spontaneity when it comes to the character growth. And the character growth is lovely here. JJ is a really good character. I like JJ and Emily a lot as well. But this season started in the most hedonistic and nihilistic way, and then the way that it ended was characters falling in love with each other and realizing how important they are. You know, like, this is, I think, the most optimistic season of Skins. And I think it's interesting seeing optimism introduced into Skins, which is really nihilistic, overwhelming, and dark, because it feels like new sincerity. It feels really good, actually. I like it. I'm so happy that a character like Effie exists. Effie is basically everything I've wanted to see in a teen drama. She might be the greatest postmodern brat of all time. One of my new favorite things in the world is watching Effie Stoneham existing, watching her just exist. A fascinating character who I can't wait to talk about more. Thank you for watching this video.